Can I interrupt? Sorry. Are you saying that you were in talks with Dave Chappelle to write Saints Row? Is that what I'm hearing?
Initially, yeah, it was going to be like a Dave Chappelle game. Yeah.
Hi, welcome back to Game Brain. I'm Don. Before closing its doors in January 2013, publisher THQ was one of gaming's biggest names. Leading up to the release of the Xbox 360, the publisher tasked developer Volition with the creation of a new open-world franchise that could directly compete with Rockstar Games' Grand Theft Auto series. The result was 2006's Saints Row. Critically and commercially successful, Saints Row was still unable to escape the label GTA clone, given its blatant use of Rockstar's patented gameplay and design conventions. Players explored a sprawling urban sandbox, drove cars, had shootouts, engaged in missions. It was basically Grand Theft Auto with a next-gen coat of paint, and games journalists at the time couldn't stop talking about it.
This game is not Grand Theft Auto, it's Saints Row, a nice religious romp through small-town family values.
You can't really talk about Saints Row without drawing some clear comparisons to the Grand Theft Auto series.
Christopher Stockman was the design director on Saints Row. I spoke with him recently about the game's development and what he thinks about the label GTA clone. Chris initially came onto the project, then codenamed Bling Bling, as the lead multiplayer designer. But after being identified as a talented designer and leader, he was promoted to spearhead the design of the entire game.
The thing is with the project is that they were building out the technology along the same line at the same time as we were sort of designing the project. So it all kind of came up simultaneously. When I got on the project, the intention was to have an open world game. And the intention was to compete with the 800-pound gorilla in some way. You know, the budget was not nearly what they what they have or what they had for their, for San Andreas and whatnot. And it was sort of like gang life through the lens of MTV. So not really nitty gritty, not really realistic, more fun. That was the high level concept, at least. Having an incredible amount of systems in the game and how they interact with each other. That's when it became, holy shit, what did we get ourselves into type of thing. What are we tackling here? And it definitely gave me newfound respect for anybody or any company that tries to tackle the genre. It is one of the hardest, outside of MMOs, I would say. At the time, things have gotten a little bit easier, but at the time, it's one of the hardest genres for sure to tackle. I look back on it now, and I'm like, I can't believe we did it with like 6 designers and probably double the programmers. But still, this day and age, when you have teams of 1,000, doing open world games, a 100-person team is nothing.
How did the activity mission variety come about? There's some pretty zany ideas in there as well. Obviously, the humor came through in that design. How did those concepts fly and come about?
The one idea the one activity that everybody seems to love is the insurance fraud, and that came from us messing around with our ragdoll physics system. A member of the team, I forget who now, had said, this would be interesting if you could play with this in the world at your whim. And so we kind of put 2 and 2 together and said, oh, well, we're doing this sort of kind of criminal-based game and whatnot, and why not do some sort of thing on insurance? Throw yourself in front of cars and watch, the physics cry havoc, And so it was a series of iteration steps of getting to the basic idea all the way to the finished product. We iterated insurance fraud probably 4 or 5 times before we were happy with that. We, as a team, myself as sort of the design lead, were heavily criticized both before and after release of being a clone, of GTA. And my sort of mantra for that project was, this is a brand new team with a brand new technology that we're building from scratch on a brand new platform, and we're doing a brand new sort of mode to the game that's never been done in open world games before. That's a lot of brand news. And so what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to take a genre and sort of turn it upside down and to create something that was sort of unproven. I kind of wanted to play it safe. It was the most expensive project the studio had ever done. It was the most expensive project that THQ had ever done. And I wanted to only improve the things where I thought that the genre needed improved on, and kept some of the conventional things that people were used to. So what that led us to do is have more time for experimentation of things that you could do that made it crazy in a sense, but not too crazy, but just crazy enough to make it, humorous and funny and memorable. But then keep some of the conventional stuff that people are used to. Those are problems that didn't need to be solved.
What's the saying? If it ain't broke?
Yeah, pretty much, right? But it's funny because a lot of people in game development, especially in design and art, think very differently than that. They're dreamers, and they want to, and that's fine. I think there's a time and place to be a dreamer. I just think at that point in time for the project and what we were doing, we dreamt enough, didn't want to oversleep.
And so the humor and the style of Saints Row was very much, it came to define the series, especially as it went on, getting more and more ridiculous, I think, as the sequels came out. Where did that humor come from and that sense of style originate? Was that just from the writing staff, or was that a sort of top to bottom flow-on effect?
We had hired a contract writer early on, and I knew him I worked on a project with him back in the day, and so it's not like I picked him, but he was and he was pretty good for the stuff that we worked on years past, but he was absolutely not the right person for Saints Row. And I can remember he wrote a dialogue line. This is the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, that basically said that whatever he was referring to was tighter than a frog's ass. And I was like, this is the worst dialogue line I've ever read. It doesn't fit with all the tone of the game, so I fired him. Then we went on and searched for a new writer, and there was initial talk of partnering up with a Dave Chappelle type, a celebrity type, to lend their sort of creative weight, writing style. But then, there was too many conditions. He wanted to have full control of the game and blah, 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 blah. So ultimately, we actually searched inward. And we put out a writing test.
Can I interrupt? Sorry. Are you saying that you were in talks with Dave Chappelle to write Saints Row? Is that what I'm hearing?
Initially, yeah. It was going to be like a Dave Chappelle game. Yeah. It got to any sort of discussions. It was like, it has to be my game. It has to be like Dave Chappelle's, game. And then we were like, no, that's not going to work. So yeah, no. We put together this test and we put it in, and we let people from the studio sort of interview for the job or give a test, take a writing test. And we collected them. There was quite a few people from QA that put in writing tests. There was people outside of the company that put in, and Steve came out as the winner. And Steve in the design team, he sat next to me during the whole project. But we worked really close together on defining the humor. Freckle Bitches was his idea. A lot of stuff came from Steve. He worked really close with the cinematic artists in creating the cutscenes and whatnot. And so a lot of the humor of that game came from his dirty mind. And he's writing for Valve now.
There's an elephant sort of lingering over this conversation, and you mentioned the 3 letters before about the 800-pound gorilla. I don't think there would have been a single review of Saints Row back in 2006 that didn't make mention to Grand Theft Auto. What do you think about the label GTA clone? And did you think that it was fair to Saints Row?
Yeah, I think it was fair. I mean, I think, we had cars, we had guns, we had gangs, we had... the thing is Saints Row being a gang-based game, that decision to take that route, use that theme was made well before San Andreas. And so San Andreas comes along, and it's funny because the original gang colors of the Saints team were green. And then San Andreas comes out, and we're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. They chose their player gang as green, and it's like, I mean, and so we obviously had to change it. And so we changed it to purple, which I thought was a fine color. But I think even GTA had a purple color as one of the enemy gangs, if I remember correctly. So yes, it's fair to say that it's a GTA-esque game. A clone, to some extent, for sure. The way you trigger missions, cutscenes, and all that. But I like to think that we took that GTA and instead of we took GTA as a blueprint, we made it better, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think sometimes you have to do that in order to, based on the circumstances of the project and based on the situations that we were in. If I would go back, I would make the same decision over again because it spawned a franchise. People criticized it and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I thought the game was a blast to play, really fun. And we did a lot of cool stuff that you had not seen in a GTA game before. And I think that's where, baby steps, right? Baby steps to making something that's bigger and grander. And they did that, right? In the sequel, did co-op and all that stuff. So that was the plan. So yeah, I think the subsequent games after the third, I don't think were as successful, both commercially and critically. They were a product of THQ's demise, and they were probably forced to make decisions that they didn't want to make. And so the end product suffered as a result. Here's hoping that they can return to their former days of glory. The problem is that a lot of the people that made that franchise what it was is gone. And you lose that voice and you lose that influence. And it definitely has an effect on the game, on the end game.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and want to see more of my work, check out this video essay I did about how Red Dead Redemption captures the brutality of the Wild West. Also, follow me on Twitter @DonaldShield to see an exclusive video from my conversation with Chris detailing how Saints Row's innovative GPS system came to be. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.